At Mother's Day lunch, I overheard my gold-digging daughter-in-law say, "We need to put her in a cheap nursing home." She didn't know the house they were sitting in was about to be sold. And the new owner. "Your presence here means so much to me. Watch until the end and leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story has reached." I never thought that at 60 years old, I'd be hiding around the corner of my own kitchen, clutching a serving dish and fighting back tears. But there I was on Mother's Day, frozen in place as I heard the words that would change everything. "We need to start looking into nursing homes for Diane," my daughter-in-law Caroline said, her voice low but clear. "Something affordable. There's that place on Oakwood that's basic but clean enough." The china platter in my hands suddenly felt heavier. I'd spent the morning preparing a roast, Caroline's favorite, hoping to bridge the growing distance between us. Now I understood why nothing I did was ever good enough. "Mom's only 60, my son Robert replied, but his tone lacked conviction. "Don't you think it's a bit soon?" "Soon? Robert, be realistic. She's becoming more forgetful. Just last week she missed her doctor's appointment." I bit my lip, remembering how Caroline had forgotten to tell me they'd rescheduled it. "Besides," she continued, "we could finally convert her room into that game room you've always wanted. Think about it, your poker night's right here instead of driving to Dave's." I peered around the corner just enough to see Robert nodding slowly, considering the possibilities while I became an inconvenience to be shelved away. My own son, whom I'd raised alone after his father walked out on us when Robert was just 9 years old. "We can't afford to wait until she needs full-time care," Caroline pressed. "The longer we wait, the more her medical costs will drain what little savings she has left." My savings. The money I'd set aside from 40 years of teaching elementary school. The money that had put Robert through college, paid for his wedding to Caroline, and helped with the down payment on their first condo. "I guess you're right," Robert finally said. "But how do we bring it up to her?" Caroline's laugh chilled me. "Oh, don't worry about that. I'll handle your mother. She trusts me." The irony nearly made me drop the platter. Instead, I quietly retreated to the dining room, set the dish on the table, and took a deep breath. When I called them in for dinner, I made sure my smile was firmly in place. Throughout the meal, I watched them through new eyes. Caroline complimenting the roast while planning to ship me off. Robert talking about his promotion while avoiding my gaze. Only my 14-year-old grandson Tyler seemed genuinely happy to be there, telling me about his science project. "Grandma, could you help me with it this weekend?" Tyler asked eagerly. Before I could answer, Caroline interjected, "Tyler, Grandma's very busy. Besides, isn't that project due Monday? You should have started earlier." I saw Tyler's face fall, and something inside me hardened. "Actually," I said calmly, "I'd love to help. Why don't you come over Saturday morning?" Caroline's smile tightened. "We have plans this weekend." "Oh?" I raised an eyebrow. "What plans?" The brief flash of panic between Caroline and Robert told me everything. There were no plans. "Just family stuff," Robert mumbled. Family stuff. That apparently didn't include me, despite this being my home, the home I'd paid off 15 years ago after decades of extra summer school teaching and weekend tutoring. The home where I'd raised my son alone, working 2 jobs after his father left us with nothing but debt. As they ate my carefully prepared meal, I realized a fundamental truth I'd been avoiding. In this house full of family, I had never felt more alone. That night, after they'd gone, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, my hand tracing the worn wood where decades of family meals had left their marks. The pain was searing, but underneath it, something else was building, determination. If they thought I was just going to fade quietly into a discount nursing home while they took over my house, they had drastically underestimated me. 40 years of wrangling elementary school children hadn't left me without resources. They wanted me gone. But this was my house, my life, and my story wasn't over yet. In fact, it was about to take a turn none of them would see coming. After that Mother's Day revelation, I began noticing everything. The way Caroline would organize my medication without asking. How Robert barely met my eyes anymore. The hushed conversations that stopped when I entered a room. It was as if overhearing their nursing home plans had removed a veil from my eyes, letting me finally see the slow erosion of my place in my own home. Tuesday morning, I came downstairs to find Caroline rearranging my kitchen cabinets. "Oh, Diane," she said with that syrupy voice she used when handling me. "I noticed you were struggling to reach the plates yesterday, so I'm moving everything to lower shelves." I hadn't struggled at all. I've had the same arrangement for 20 years, Caroline. She patted my arm like I was a confused child. "Trust me, this will be much better for you." Every day brought new little indignities. Robert, helpfully, taking over bill payments because the internet banking might be confusing. Caroline answering questions directed at me. The two of them exchanging glances when I mentioned future plans. Only Tyler seemed immune to whatever narrative they'd constructed about me. Friday afternoon, he stopped by after school with his science project materials. "I thought we could get started today, Grandma," he said, spreading his solar system model across my kitchen table. "Mom said we can't do it tomorrow after all." Of course she did. "Well, I'm glad you're here now," I told him, feeling a genuine smile for the first time that week. As we worked, Tyler talked about school, friends, and eventually what I needed to hear. "They're being weird about you lately," he said, carefully painting a small Neptune. "Dad and Mom, I mean. Like, they keep saying you need help with stuff, but I know you don't." My heart squeezed. What kind of help do they think I need? Tyler shrugged. "Mom keeps saying you're getting forgetful and can't take care of yourself. But that's stupid. You remember my friends' names better than she does." I painted Mars a deep red, keeping my hands steady despite my rising anger. "And what do you think?" "I think they want your room," he said bluntly. "Mom was measuring it last week when you were at your book club. She's been looking at pool tables online." The confirmation stung worse than I expected. I'd raised my son in this house, watched him take his first steps across this very floor, and now he was measuring my bedroom while I was still in it. That evening, the doorbell rang just as I was finishing dinner. James Parker, my late husband's attorney and one of the few friends who'd stuck by me after Frank left, stood on my porch with an unusually serious expression. "James, what a surprise," I said, ushering him in. He refused my offer of coffee, sitting stiffly at my kitchen table. "Diane, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Have you authorized Robert to make changes to your will or property titles?" The question hit me like ice water. "Absolutely not." "Why?" James pulled out some papers. "Because he came to my office yesterday, asking about the process for transferring your house into his name. He said you were becoming incapacitated and wanted to simplify things before you needed care." My hands shook as I took the papers, draft documents for a property transfer and power of attorney. "I never." "I know," James said gently. "That's why I'm here. Diane, Robert suggested you're experiencing cognitive decline, but I've known you 30 years. You're sharp as ever. Something's not right." I stared at the documents, my son's betrayal solidifying in black and white. "They want to put me in a nursing home, James. I overheard them planning it on Mother's Day." His expression hardened. "Have you signed anything recently? Anything at all?" I thought carefully. "No. But Caroline's been bringing me updated insurance paperwork that I keep forgetting to sign." The realization made me shudder at how close I'd come. James nodded grimly. "Good. Don't sign anything without calling me first." He hesitated. "Diane, this house is your only major asset. If they're planning what I think they are. They want me gone and my house sold," I finished flatly. As James left, he squeezed my shoulder. "Document everything. Call me anytime, day or night." Alone again, I climbed the stairs to my bedroom. The bedroom Caroline was already measuring for a pool table. I opened my closet and pulled out the lockbox hidden behind old photo albums. Inside was the deed to my house, my will, and financial documents showing the mortgage I'd paid off alone after Frank abandoned us with nothing but his gambling debts. I'd protected my son from knowing how his father had nearly bankrupted us. I'd worked myself to exhaustion to give Robert stability and opportunities. Now he and Caroline were measuring my bedroom while planning to dispose of me in a clean enough facility. Sitting on my bed, documents spread around me, something shifted inside me. The hurt crystallized into clarity. For 40 years, I'd put everyone else first. Now it was time to protect myself. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Margaret? It's Diane. Remember how you always said if I ever wanted to sell this place, I should call you first? We need to talk. The day after James's visit, I started what I called my evidence journal. A simple notebook where I documented every dismissive comment, every decision made without consulting me, every whispered conversation. It might have seemed paranoid, but instinct told me I'd need proof of what was happening. That Saturday morning, Margaret Reynolds came by for coffee. We'd been neighbors for 20 years before she became a successful real estate agent and moved to a luxury condo downtown. Her keen eyes assessed my kitchen as I poured coffee. This place has great bones, Diane. The market in this neighborhood is hot right now. I stirred cream into my cup. How hot? She named a figure that made me nearly drop my spoon. That's with minimal updates. Renovate the kitchen and main bath, you could ask another $50,000. I leaned back, processing this information. The house was worth nearly triple what I'd imagined. Just exploring options, I assured her. For now, I need to understand what I'm dealing with. After Margaret left, I called my bank and confirmed no unusual activity on my accounts. I placed a security freeze on my credit report and changed all my passwords. Then I called my doctor's office. This is Diane Walker. I'd like to request a cognitive assessment. The receptionist sounded surprised. Any particular concerns, Mrs. Walker? Just documentation, I replied. I want it on record that I'm of sound mind. 2 days later, I sat across from Dr. Reynolds as she reviewed my test results. Diane, your cognitive function is excellent. Better than many patients decades younger. You scored in the 92nd percentile. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I need those results in writing, please. As I left with my paperwork, I noticed a missed call from Caroline. Her voicemail was sugary sweet. Just checking in. I found some important insurance documents you should sign. I'll bring them over tonight. No need to read through all that boring fine print, I've checked everything. I was sitting at the kitchen table when they arrived, a manila envelope in front of me. Caroline's eyes immediately fixated on it. What's that? She asked, her tone deliberately casual. Just some paperwork. I slid it aside. You said you had documents for me? She produced several papers with yellow sticky notes marking signature lines. Just routine updates. Sign here, here, and initial here. I took the papers but didn't pick up the pen. What exactly am I signing? Robert shifted uncomfortably. Just standard stuff, Mom. We're helping organize things. Things? I echoed, raising an eyebrow. Financial matters, Caroline said smoothly. Managing your assets more efficiently. I smiled politely. I think I'll have James look these over first. The mention of James's name changed the atmosphere instantly. Caroline's smile faltered. James Parker? Why would you bother him with this? He's been my attorney for 30 years, I replied. And a trusted friend. Mom, Robert interjected, these are just standard forms. Getting James involved would be an unnecessary expense. I held his gaze. I can afford it. Caroline's patience visibly thinned. Diane, really, we're just trying to help. These papers simply make things easier if... She paused, choosing her words carefully. If you ever need more comprehensive care. And there it was. If I become too burdensome, I clarified. Robert had the decency to look embarrassed. Mom, that's not. I know exactly what this is, I interrupted, surprising myself with my steady voice. And I'm not signing anything without legal review. Caroline abandoned her sweet facade. This is ridiculous. We're your family, not some strangers trying to scam you. I stood up, gathering their documents. Then you won't mind if my attorney reviews them. I handed them back. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm rather tired. After they left, I called James and recounted the interaction. He asked me to come to his office the next morning. When I arrived, James's expression was grave as he explained what the documents actually were: power of attorney forms and healthcare directives giving Robert and Caroline complete control over my finances and medical decisions, plus preliminary paperwork to facilitate a property transfer. They're laying groundwork to declare you incompetent, James concluded. My hands trembled, but my voice remained steady. What do I do now? James leaned forward. Do you trust me to help you protect yourself? I nodded. Then first, we document everything with that assessment you wisely obtained. Second, we update your will and establish your own power of attorney, with someone other than Robert. Third, he hesitated, we consider your assets. You mean the house, I said quietly. It's your largest asset, and what they're clearly after, James confirmed. The question is, what do you want to do with it? I thought about the home I'd sacrificed to keep, the walls that held decades of memories, and the son who now saw it as his inheritance rather than his mother's sanctuary. I want to control my own destiny, I finally said. Whatever that requires. When you've lived 6 decades, you learn that life rarely unfolds as expected. But nothing prepared me for how quickly my world transformed over the next 2 weeks. With James's guidance, I updated my legal documents, naming him as my healthcare proxy and financial power of attorney. We established a trust to protect my assets and drafted a new will. As James put it, we were building a fortress around my independence. Meanwhile, Margaret quietly showed my house to a property developer looking for homes in established neighborhoods. Their offer was generous and came with a flexible timeline. I didn't accept immediately, but I kept the option open. What I didn't anticipate was finding allies where I least expected them. It started with a knock at my door one Tuesday afternoon. I opened it to find Eleanor Wright, my next-door neighbor of 15 years, holding a plate of cookies. Peace offering, she said, extending the plate. I've been meaning to come by since your garden club meeting. I hadn't attended garden club in months, not since Caroline had, helpfully, called to cancel my membership, claiming I found it too taxing. Eleanor followed my confused expression. Caroline told everyone you were stepping back due to health concerns. But then I saw you carrying groceries yesterday looking perfectly fine, and I realized something wasn't right. I invited her in, and over tea, the story spilled out: Mother's Day, the nursing home plans, the legal documents, everything. Eleanor's eyes widened. Diane, the same thing happened to my sister in Baltimore. Her son tried to sell her house from under her. Started with the same kind of comments about her memory. She leaned forward. A group of us meet at the community center, seniors advocating for ourselves. Would you come tomorrow? That's how I found myself sitting in a circle with 8 other people, all over 60, sharing stories that mirrored my own with unsettling similarity. Elder financial abuse is more common than people realize, said Howard, a retired judge. Especially from family members who feel entitled to their parents' assets. Ruth, a former nurse, nodded. They start by undermining your confidence. Making you question your memory, your judgment. Isolating you from friends who might notice. Every word resonated. Caroline's constant corrections. Robert's dismissive tone. The cancelled appointments and memberships. They weren't just annoying, they were calculated. What did you all do? I asked. The answers varied. Some confronted their families directly. Others took legal action. A few, like me, were still figuring it out. Howard handed me his card. If you need another set of legal eyes on anything, call me. No charge. By the time I left, I had 5 new phone numbers and a dinner invitation from Eleanor. For the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. But my most important ally came from where I least expected, Tyler. He arrived at my house Saturday morning, agitated and out of breath. "Grandma, I need to tell you something," he blurted before I could even offer him juice. "I heard Mom and Dad fighting about you last night." My heart sank. "What did they say?" "Dad was mad because someone named James called him. Mom was freaking out because you got that lawyer involved." Tyler's eyes were wide. "She said they needed to accelerate the timeline before you did something stupid." I kept my voice calm despite my racing pulse. "What else?" "Mom said they should bring the papers again, but with her parents this time. She said you wouldn't make a scene in front of them." He looked down. "And Dad?" "Dad said maybe they should just put the house on the market anyway since your name is still on their mortgage documents from when they bought their first place." I stared at him, pieces clicking into place. The mortgage documents I'd co-signed years ago. They'd refinanced since then, but had I ever been removed as a guarantor? "Tyler, this is very important. Can you remember anything else?" He nodded, pulling out his phone. "I recorded some of it. I know that's wrong, but..." His voice trailed off. "Under these circumstances, I think it was very wise," I assured him. The recording was muffled but clear enough. Caroline's voice was sharp with frustration. "We need that house, Robert. Your bonus won't cover the credit cards, and we can't refinance again. Your mother doesn't need a 4-bedroom home. She needs supervision." Robert sounded tired. "I know. But if she gets James involved, then we go with Plan B. We convince the bank she's incapacitated. As her son and next of kin, you'd have a strong case, especially with our documentation of her declining state." My blood ran cold. They'd been building a case against me all this time. Tyler looked up, his young face serious. "Grandma, are they trying to take your house?" I considered lying to protect his relationship with his parents, but he deserved the truth. "Yes, sweetheart, I believe they are." He straightened his shoulders. "Then I'll help you stop them." That evening, I called James and played him the recording. His silence spoke volumes. "We need to move quickly," he finally said. "I'll be there first thing tomorrow with the property developer. In the meantime, secure anything important, documents, valuables, irreplaceable items." "You think they'd take my things?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "I think," James said carefully, "that people who would try to declare their own mother incompetent to gain her assets aren't above helping themselves to her belongings." I spent that night sorting through 60 years of possessions, deciding what to save and what to leave behind. With each photo, each memento, I felt myself letting go, not just of things, but of illusions I'd held about my family. By dawn, I knew exactly what I had to do. I woke up on Sunday with a strange sense of peace. The house was quiet, sunlight filtering through the curtains I'd sewn decades ago. For 40 years, these walls had sheltered my family. Today, they would witness the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Margaret had arrived early yesterday with the property developer, a polite woman named Vanessa who walked through my home with reverent appreciation rather than calculating eyes. The offer they presented exceeded even Margaret's optimistic assessment. I'd signed the papers that afternoon, with a closing date just 2 weeks away and a clause allowing me to stay in the house for 30 days after. "You're sure about this?" James had asked before I signed. I thought of Robert measuring my bedroom for his game room. Caroline researching affordable nursing homes. The decades I'd spent putting everyone else first. "I've never been more certain," I'd replied, signing my name with a steady hand. Now I moved through my morning routine with deliberate calm, knowing that Caroline and Robert would be arriving at noon for what they called a family lunch, the ambush Tyler had warned me about. The doorbell rang at exactly 12:01. Caroline was nothing if not punctual when it served her purposes. Diane, she exclaimed with manufactured warmth, air-kissing my cheek. Behind her stood Robert, Tyler, and Caroline's parents, Edward and Martha, whom I hadn't seen in over a year. "What a lovely surprise," I said, looking directly at Caroline. "You didn't mention your parents would be joining us." A flicker of satisfaction crossed her face. She'd expected me to be flustered, perhaps too intimidated to challenge them with an audience. "Last-minute addition," she replied smoothly. "Dad had a golf tournament cancel, so they were free." I welcomed them all, ushering them to the dining room where I'd set the table with my best china, not for their benefit, but because this would be the last family meal in this house, and I wanted to mark the occasion properly. Throughout lunch, Caroline orchestrated a careful performance. She replenished my water without asking, corrected innocuous details of stories I shared, and exchanged meaningful glances with Robert whenever I paused to remember a name or date. Her parents nodded sympathetically at these exchanges, clearly prepared for the narrative of my supposed decline. "Diane," Edward finally said as we finished dessert, "Caroline tells us you've been having a hard time managing on your own lately." "Does she?" I responded mildly. "We're concerned," Martha added, reaching for my hand across the table. "Getting older is difficult. There's no shame in needing help." I patted her hand before withdrawing mine. "Aging has its challenges, but I'm managing quite well, thank you." Caroline seized the opening. "Mom, we've been meaning to talk to you about some options that might make things easier." She produced a glossy brochure from her purse. "Oakwood Pines has a wonderful assisted living program. We toured it last week." Without consulting me, I noted. Robert cleared his throat. "We didn't want to worry you until we'd done the research." "Very thoughtful," I replied. Tyler caught my eye from across the table, his expression asking if it was time. I gave him the slightest nod. "We've brought some paperwork," Caroline continued, pulling out the same documents I'd refused to sign earlier. "Simple things to help us make decisions if you're ever unable to." "Power of attorney and healthcare directives," I clarified, watching surprise flicker across her face at my understanding. "Just precautions," Robert added quickly. "Standard estate planning." I folded my hands on the table. "And what about the house? Is that part of this estate planning too?" Their momentary silence confirmed everything. Caroline recovered first. "Eventually, of course, we'd help you downsize. This place is far too much for you to maintain. And I suppose the timing is convenient, with those credit card bills coming due," I said calmly. "The ones you mentioned when you didn't realize Tyler was recording your conversation." The color drained from both their faces. Tyler stared at his plate, but I could see his small, satisfied smile. "What are you talking about?" Caroline sputtered. Rather than answering, I retrieved a folder from the sideboard and placed it on the table. "I have some paperwork too." Edward frowned. "Diane, this isn't necessary. We're here to help you." "No," I corrected gently, "you're here to help them get my house." I turned to Caroline's parents. "Did they tell you they planned to have me declared incompetent if I resisted?" Martha gasped. Robert's face flushed dark red. "Mom, that's not," he began. "Stop lying, Robert," I interrupted, my voice firm but calm. "I have recordings, documentation of cancelled appointments, and a comprehensive cognitive assessment proving I'm of perfectly sound mind." I opened the folder and slid a document toward them. "What I don't have, as of yesterday, is ownership of this house." The shock on their faces was almost worth everything I'd been through. "What?" Caroline whispered, snatching up the paper. "I've sold the house," I said simply. "Closing is in 2 weeks, though I'll stay for 30 days after to arrange my move." Robert stared at me in disbelief. "You can't do that." "I already have," I replied. "The house is mine, Robert. It always has been." "But we had plans." Caroline cried, abandoning all pretense. "Yes," I agreed. "You certainly did. 2 years can change everything." I watched the sunset from my balcony at Lakeview Estates, a glass of wine in my hand and a contentment in my heart I never thought possible after that fateful Mother's Day. The community garden below bursts with spring flowers, many planted by my own hands. From my second-floor apartment, I can see the clubhouse where I teach watercolor on Thursdays and attend book club on Tuesdays. The irony isn't lost on me. I live in a senior community after all, just not the affordable nursing home Caroline had chosen. Lakeview is an active adult community where I found friendships, purpose, and a freedom I'd forgotten was possible. After the confrontation over lunch that day, things moved quickly. Caroline and Robert stormed out, taking her shocked parents with them. Only Tyler remained, hugging me tightly before reluctantly following his parents. "I'll call you tomorrow, Grandma," he promised. True to his word, he called the next day, then visited after school. We've maintained that connection despite everything. The closing on my house went smoothly. The money, carefully invested with James's help, provides a comfortable income to supplement my teacher's pension. I found this apartment within a week, 2 bedrooms with a balcony overlooking the community gardens. The second bedroom has become Tyler's whenever he stays over, which is often now that he has his driver's license. Caroline cut contact immediately, of course. She tried to prevent Tyler from seeing me, but at 16, he was old enough to make his own decisions, especially with Robert surprisingly taking my side in that particular battle. Robert, that's been the complicated part. 6 months after I moved, he appeared at my door, alone and looking older than his years. "Mom," he said, his voice rough. "Can we talk?" We sat on this very balcony, an awkward silence between us until he finally spoke. "Caroline and I separated," he said. "After everything happened with you, I started seeing things differently. The way she talked about you, the plans she made without telling me." He shook his head. "The divorce will be final next month." I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part, the mother part, ached for his pain. "I'm not here to ask for money," he continued quickly. "I've started over. Smaller apartment, second job to handle the debt. Tyler's with me half the time." "Why are you here, Robert?" I asked gently. He stared at his hands. "To say I'm sorry. And to ask if there's any way we could start again." I didn't answer immediately. The hurt was still too raw, the betrayal too deep. But as spring turned to summer, and summer to fall, we began rebuilding, cautiously at first, meeting for coffee in neutral locations, always with clear boundaries. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend easily. It wasn't until last Christmas that I invited him to my home. Tyler was there too, his presence a buffer and bridge between us. As we shared a meal at my new table, in my new life, something shifted. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. Robert wasn't the man I'd raised him to be when he plotted with Caroline, but he wasn't irredeemable either. The doorbell rings, pulling me from my memories. I set down my wine glass and make my way inside. Through the peephole, I see Robert and Tyler, both carrying covered dishes. "We brought dinner," Robert says when I open the door. Tyler made his famous lasagna. "With extra cheese, just how you like it, Grandma," Tyler adds proudly. I welcome them in, watching as they move comfortably through my space. Tyler heads straight to the kitchen, familiar with where everything is kept. Robert is more hesitant, still earning back the right to casual familiarity. "How was the date?" he asks cautiously. I feel a smile tug at my lips. "Very nice. Henry is a gentleman." Robert nods, clearly trying to appear comfortable with the idea of his mother dating. Henry is a widower I met in my watercolor class, a retired engineer with kind eyes and a gentle sense of humor. Our relationship is new, just 3 months old, but it adds yet another unexpected joy to this chapter of my life. "I'm glad," Robert says, and I think he means it. Over dinner, Tyler chatters about college applications and his latest track meet. Robert talks about his promotion at work and the stress management class he's taking. I share stories from my book club and gardening committee. It's not perfect, not the family dynamic I once envisioned, but it's authentic in a way our previous relationship never was. After they leave, I return to the balcony. The stars are out now, a blanket of possibilities spread across the night sky. On my phone, I scroll through photos from last weekend's community art show where 3 of my paintings sold. Eleanor appears in several pictures, her arm linked through mine as we laugh at something beyond the camera's view. My life at 62 is nothing like I imagined it would be at 30, 40, or even 59. It's better. The betrayal that sparked this journey will always be part of my story. But it's no longer the defining chapter. By losing what I thought was irreplaceable, my home, my role as the self-sacrificing mother, I found something far more valuable, myself. As I prepare for bed, I smile at the framed photo on my nightstand. It's from the day I moved in here, me standing proudly in front of my new building, surrounded by my senior advocacy group, all of us beaming. Eleanor took the picture right after we'd unpacked the last box. "To new beginnings," she'd said, raising an imaginary toast. New beginnings indeed. Not an ending, not a diminishing, but a flowering. My own, unexpected spring.